Hi, my name is Tara Shuklowski and I'm an aerospace engineer. I spent many years studying the physics of bird flight, and today I want to show you how you can communicate your research in a very simple and engaging manner to a child, so that the child can actually get a taste of what you have been spending many years thinking about, but actually be able to transfer that knowledge and build an experiment that really helps them have a deeper understanding about the concept.
So I wanted to give you some lists of the constraints that we are working within. So the first constraint is that you need to have a story. The story is, why are we going to spend the next couple of hours learning about this particular topic? So why should I care about what you have to tell me? And you really want to, this is the application of the concept. So for example, in this case, I'm going to talk about why or how a bird flies in the sky and what's happening on the bird's wing that's making it glide so efficiently. So why do we care? Learning about the nature's secrets will help us possibly create more efficient airplanes. So the first big thing is have a story. The second is you need to have 4 or 5 subtopics. So a way to think about this is that you have 4 beads that match up together to form a beautiful necklace of the story. So these are 4 or 5 subtopics or concepts, and these have to be physics-based concepts. And the third constraint, and the most exciting one, is the experiment. So your concept needs to come with the ability to provide the child with an opportunity to create an experiment. So the experiment has to clearly illustrate the concept, and this is the hardest part, and it should last about 40 to 45 minutes. So it cannot be just like a simple demo that you do. It has to be something that a child can redesign. So for example, the challenge can be create a bird out of paper that can glide for, say, like 20 yards, and they can come up with whatever kind of wing shape that they want, but it's a very open-ended design problem. So it has to have the ability of redesign. And then finally, you need to use very low-cost materials, so things that you can find easily around your house or at a grocery store. So let me show you some of these materials. So you can use feathers or construction paper, balloons, different kinds of popsicle sticks, little sticks, and string and rubber band, dowels, and of course, most importantly, tape. Right now we have a simple sort of constraint of $1 per experiment, but I really want to reduce the cost even more so that children who are in third world countries have the ability to learn and experiment, because paper is not easily available. Finally, the explanation that you give has to be very, very simple. It has to be about 10 minutes long, and you cannot use any jargon. So whatever terminology you use, you have to explain what it means. So no formulae, no technical terms. And that's it. So now the next thing that we're going to talk about is how do we create these 4 or 5 subtopics out of this huge mass of ideas that you probably have. So the first step is that you write down all the ideas that you have in your head on post-it notes. So put one idea on each note, and whatever you want to talk about, whatever you find interesting, and it could be something that you find very interesting but the field doesn't think so, but so put it down. And then the next step would be to start to organize them into bins, and see which ones have a lot of which ones are really rich, and which ones are really fundamental to understanding the whole field. We have viscosity, streamlining, lift, wingtips, different kinds of flight characteristics, force, pressure, everything over here. So let's start to organize it. Viscosity is an aspect of flow, so let's put flow over here. Turbulence is also a characteristic of flow. We can put tail over here. Tail is not that important, or not in the grand scheme of things. Bernoulli's is basically how you create lift, so let's put Bernoulli's here. Now let's try and break these main ideas into smaller sections. So Reynolds number is basically a way to describe how the fluid medium feels to a creature. So how thick or viscous air is to the bird. And the Reynolds number for a bird is much lower than that of an airplane, and so it's a very interesting concept. So we will spend maybe a day talking about that, or a session talking about that. So the Reynolds number and viscosity topic. Maybe the turbulence and separation we can put into the parking lot for now. Lift, a very, very key concept, and the fundamental one here. So it's very complex. So what is actually happening on the wing in terms of the air molecules? What's happening to the air molecules on top of the wing and on the underside of the wing? So we want to talk about pressure and forces. So maybe that's on the first introduction, and then we can talk a little bit about the Bernoulli's principle, and then on the second part of that we can talk about the different variables, so angle of attack and speed that affect lift or increase or decrease it. So now we have 3 subtopics, and then wings are a critical piece of this. So I would say aspect ratio is so interesting when you think about birds, because you look at the albatross and you look at the aspect ratio of the albatross, and it's very, very high, and then you look at something as stubby as the pigeon, and you really begin to understand what's the impact of this. So we should talk about aspect ratio for sure. I think camber, maybe a bit too complicated to go into now. Lift distribution is interesting because you get the opportunity to actually transfer what you learned about lift and what's happening on the wing in terms of the air molecules and put that on the bird's wing. So I think we should talk about that. So lift distribution and wing tips go hand in hand, because what happens at the wing tips is interesting. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So right away, I think we have our 5 topics, and then if somebody is interested, we could talk about flight characteristics, but I think that's too much. So this is going to be our progression of concepts. We start with flow, go into what's happening on the wing with the air molecules, what are some things that increase or decrease lift, and then what's so special about the bird's wings, the different range in birds' wings you see, and then what's actually happening on the wing in terms of the lift distribution. So there's our story. So now comes the fun part. So here you get to use all the things that you've been collecting for so many years. I'm sure you have a lot of interesting books that are not necessarily the textbooks or the technical books that you use for your research, but these are the books that are actually designed for the public, the layman. And I'd recommend starting with them, because that's what's going to help you start with a very clean and fresh approach that will be engaging for a child. So these are some of my favorite books for birds. So this is Charlie Harper's Birds and Words, and if you look at the pictures, they're so simple, clean, beautiful colors, and these are really inspiring because they help you make a presentation that's engaging, simple, and illustrates ideas clearly. And I love the colors that he uses. Coffee table books are great for this as well, because the pictures are beautiful and they really inspire you and help you look at the same concept in a different way. So just sit, browse through these books, and think about how you can use beautiful images and pictures to get your audience excited. One of my favorite books is this book. It's called 700 Science Experiments for Everyone. It was created by a team of scientists for UNESCO, and it's out of print, but you can get it on Amazon. And it really has amazing experiments and demos, and we can look at the air pressure ones, so page 76. So if you look at these experiments, you get a sense for how simple the materials are. It's all stuff that you can use around the house, and it's like old tin cans and nails, but the experiments are actually pretty sophisticated. So this one, you actually make a lamp chimney lift pump. So this is all using stuff that you find around the house. So I would highly recommend just going through this book, and you get a lot of ideas for the experiments. Sometimes unusual books like the National Geographic are useful too. This is a 1950 edition of how hummingbirds fly, but these again are just to sort of get your juices flowing. So I would recommend thinking about keeping those simple materials around you, and really thinking about how can a child take whatever you've taught and create an experiment or create a model that really helps them understand the concept better. So just to illustrate, I will talk about creating a bird that helps understand the aspect ratio kind of concept. So the challenge would be to create a bird out of simple construction paper, Play-Doh, and tape, and to make a bird with different very, very high aspect ratio wings and very short aspect ratio wings, and to see how differently they fly. And it's going to be very difficult for the child to make both of them fly, so they'll really have to understand what's working in each, and that's going to really help them deepen their understanding. So that's an example of an experiment where you really don't give them any kinds of direction. You just say, you have to use a certain piece of paper of this size, and you want to be able to have the bird model glide a certain distance, but it's completely up to them, and to be able to figure out what shape of wings, what size of the tail, what kind of a body, and their sort of main variable to work with is the aspect ratio. So that would be an example of a good experiment that allows for redesign and uses very simple materials. So now that we have a story, we have some idea of what kind of experiments a child can do for the topic that you have to discuss, I would just like to end by saying it's not easy. The first time you come up with a bunch of ideas and topics, and you come up with some experiments, you have to do them yourself to see whether they're feasible, and then you have some children test it out, and this process takes time. So I want to say up front that it's not a cut and dried, like this way of coming up with some ideas is not a cut and dried formula, and it's really about a lot of troubleshooting and a lot of redesigning on your end as well. The value of this is that essentially your work is made very accessible to the public, to children, and in general to a much larger audience than you would normally reach. Iridescent, which is the nonprofit that I started, the mission is essentially to communicate science to the public and to make it very, very accessible to a huge number of people. And we can provide a lot of resources to you to help you do that. One instance is we have a website called The Curiosity Machine, and it's just a collection of videos, and especially of scientists and engineers talking about their work in a form that a child can take and do an experiment. So we would put up your videos here and have an invitation to children all over the world to submit their project ideas, and then you have the opportunity to give them feedback on that. So right away your work is made accessible to a huge number of children all over the world. So that is something very powerful and something very inspiring even for you, because the moment you start to talk about your work in a form that the public understands or children understand, you yourself are reminded of why you started to do this in the first place. I think too often you get caught up in all the day-to-day challenges of doing research and writing proposals and grants and reports and all of that, and you lose contact with why you started to do this in the first place. And trying to explain it to a child is what will help you remember that. So in the end, I want to say it's going to be difficult, I don't want to lie, but it's going to be extremely rewarding, and we are there with you to help you through the process. But it's really going to be a journey of learning together, and it's going to be very exciting. That's what I can promise.